When people say this is Hollywood's nicest man, he's so much more than that.
And what a body.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for checking out the brand new season of Chicago Humanities tapes. This is the spot for the biggest names and brightest minds from the Chicago Humanities live spring and fall festivals direct to you. You're tuning in at a great time. We're about to release the rest of our spring 2024 live lineup. We've released a couple of names already, and tickets are almost sold out on all of those, including journalist and podcaster Kara Swisher, MSNBC's Joy Reid, and musician Kathleen Hanna of iconic feminist bands Bikini Kill and La Tigra. So head to chicagohumanities.org as soon as you can, where you can grab some tickets and sign up for our email list to be the first to know who's coming up next and where you can see them live and in person. I'm Alisa Rosenthal, and I'm here to audibly sneak you into all of our best events and see if we can work together to solve some of humanity's biggest questions. Today's episode asks, what's it like to be friends with the nicest man in Hollywood? So you're going to hear from one of the most popular events from our latest season, beloved actor Henry Winkler, chatting with his friend and co-star from the TV show Barry, D'Arcy Carden. You know the Emmy-winning Henry Winkler from his many treasured characters and the hilarious and sincere quality that he's brought to immortalizing some of the most famous lines and characters in TV. Of course you know him as Arthur Fonzarelli on Happy Days.
I mean, how come you don't get to pay anything?
How come? 'Cause I'm the Fonz, huh? Hey!
As well as schlocky acting teacher Gene Cousineau from Barry.
I once auditioned for the guy that robbed the house on Full House. And I carried a loaded Beretta with me into the audition, just to feel the weight of it.
Did you get the part?
Oh, they freaked out.
A personal favorite performance of mine, the inept family lawyer Barry Zuckerkorn from Arrested Development.
Really? There's a chance we don't have to go to trial?
Absolutely. And I say we take it because we will never get an offer this good again.
Wow.
Great, what's the offer?
Well, I didn't read it. Well, I just got it yesterday. FYI, I'm trying to get back into the dating world.
And not to mention a crucial cameo on Schoolhouse Rock that I tracked down for you.
Newton's law of gravity says that every object in the universe pulls on every other object. The bigger the object, the stronger the pull. But the greater the distance between the objects, the weaker the pull become. Come back, Mary Jean.
And you'll definitely recognize D'Arcy Carden from one of her many roles sweeping comedy TV these days. I know her the best from The Good Place, where she was nominated for an Emmy playing the robot Janet.
Not a girl.
Along with Broad City and the A League of Their Own reboot. So please enjoy this life-affirming hour, and definitely stick around till the end for the cutest darn audience Q&A you'll ever hear. This is Henry Winkler and D'Arcy Carden live at Chicago's Francis W. Parker School in fall 2023.
Thank you for being here. Before we start, I would just like to say D'Arcy is a very good friend of Stacy and mine. We acted together, and it is a pleasure that we asked her to come here tonight, and she flew, and thank you.
The pleasure is truly mine. Thank you for screaming. The pleasure is so mine. I'm honored that you asked me. I love and adore you.
Thank you.
And it's so nice to meet you all tonight. I would fly anywhere for you, sir. Chicago's a treat.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out. I would like to talk about my friend Henry Winkler's beautiful new book, Being Henry, The Fonz, and Beyond. I read this book this week, and it was, I think I've told you, we've been hanging out today, and I've been trying not to talk to him and Stacy, his wonderful wife, about the book, because I want to talk about it with you guys. But it is funny.
Thank you.
It is moving.
Thank you.
I cried a lot. I took a picture of myself crying, which I never do. I cannot wait for you all to read it. It's just wonderful. You're here because you love Henry, and you're going to get to know Henry so much more and so much more intimately. And it's just wonderful. I love it. And I can't wait for you all to read it and tell all your friends.
I can't wait either.
And they're, yeah. Okay, so I have gotten to know Henry over the last, we were on the show Barry together, so it's been about 7 years. I'm just going to talk about Henry for a little bit, and then we can talk about the book. We were sort of instantly friends.
Yes.
I would say not even sort of. We met.
Yes.
And we bonded very quickly.
We did.
And
you were my assistant in the first year of Barry.
Right.
You were Gene Cousineau's assistant.
Yes,
and
Natalie
then somehow
Greer.
that faded into I don't know where.
I don't know where either.
And then you became Sarah Goldberg's assistant.
Yes, okay.
Sally's assistant.
That's right.
You were everybody's assistant.
I was everybody's assistant.
You were Bill Hader's assistant in real life.
In real life, yes, that's right. Yes, so we sort of, there's so many fun stories about Barry, and we have a while, so we'll talk about some of them. But it was the way you sort of took me under your wing and became my dear, dear friend so quickly has been one of the most rewarding relationships of my entire life. And I want to tell you guys a few things. I want to tell you what type of friend Henry is. Okay. Henry is the type of friend, and Stacy too. Stacy Winkler, who is here, who I adore and love, and you'll get to know her well in the book as well. Henry is the type of friend who calls you and checks in. He especially called me a lot during COVID when I was really lonely and missing friends. And we had more phone calls than maybe anyone in my life, and it was really, really meaningful to me. Henry is the type of friend that when you're leaving his house, you're getting in your car, he says, wait, and he runs inside, goes in the backyard, clips a few roses from his beautiful rose bushes, wraps them in paper and tinfoil, and brings them out to your car. Henry is the type of friend that when you tell him that you are going to be on Broadway for the first time, he says, "Oh my fucking God, Broadway." Henry is the type of friend that when you're on Broadway, he checks in with you every single Monday when you don't have a show to see how that week went, during rehearsals, during the show, asks where you are in rehearsals. Is the tape on the floor? Are you gelling with the cast? Have you memorized your lines? It was one of the, in the time that I was doing Broadway, it was one of the things I looked forward to the most. It made it so much more special.
And I'm also the kind of friend that Stacy and I went and saw you,
yeah, you did.
And thoroughly enjoyed you up on that stage. You wiped the stage clean. You know, there was nobody else on that stage but you.
You really? See, this is the kind of friend he is. I'm telling you. There's so many more.
What else?
Okay, I'm going to tell you more. Henry is the type of friend that when you're having trouble while you're doing a project, play, a movie, a TV show, and you're doubting yourself, he looks you in the eye and says, "You know." And he made me write it down on a Post-it note and put it on my mirror so that every day I could look in the mirror and think to myself, "I know." And it really did help me. You. Henry and Stacy are the type of friends that when you move into a new place or you start a new project, they send you the biggest orchid plant you could possibly imagine. Those are orchids, right?
Yes, they are.
I've never seen.
And they were real. They were not silk.
No, they're real.
Yeah.
And a man, not just a delivery guy, maybe the guy who planted the damn plant himself delivers it to you.
All the way from Thailand.
It's incredible.
We sent him.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, Henry is the type of friend that when I was sort of doing my first couple of award shows, which can be very overwhelming, and I'm part of a cast, I'm not nominated for anything, Henry, when he saw me on the red carpet, linked arms with me and took me to each one of his interviews. And this is Henry Winkler, so he's in the prime time spot. He's nominated for things. They want to talk to him. They don't want to talk to this scrub. But because he's bringing me to each and every interview, I got to be on TV. And that was not on purpose. You knew what you were doing.
I knew what I was doing.
And it was again, very meaningful.
Yeah, I thought it would make me look good.
Henry is the type of friend that when your husband goes out of town and you have just moved into a big, scary new house and you're afraid to sleep there alone, Henry and Stacy say, "Well, you'll be staying at our house." "Well, you will absolutely be staying at our house. You're not staying in that house alone. You'll come to our house." And you guys, when I went into my little room, it's a beautiful house, I'm sure you can imagine, there was toothpaste on the sink. There was a fresh toothbrush. There was a towel. There was gum. There was candy. There was water. They had the TV on a channel that they thought I might enjoy. I mean, every detail was thought of.
Because you never know when you need to be a manager of a hotel. It could happen like that,
and it did.
You know?
And it did, and it does, and you know that. It was amazing. And then in the morning, we woke up, Henry made me coffee, we talked. I mean, this is just, what I'm saying is, this is a dear friend. What I'm also saying is, you may know that this is Hollywood's nicest man. I'm sort of doing this, because when people say, isn't he just the nicest man you ever met? I almost want to, this is what I say, he's so much more than that. Nice is pretty easy, actually.
And what a body. Really. Thank you.
And what
Thank you.
a body. And that leads us to, let's talk about this book, shall we? Now, the book just came out this week, and people will be reading it for decades and centuries to come, but the fun thing about reading it this week is that it's this week, really, this month, let's say, is the 50th anniversary of when you auditioned for and got a great little role in a show called Happy Days. 50 years on August 30th.
When I auditioned, I only
October.
had 6 lines.
Is that true?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. I had hair down to my shoulders, and I had a gigantic sweat stain that it looked like the Hudson River was flowing under my arm. And I walked into this room, 11 people, the head of casting behind a very impressive desk, Millie Gussie at the time, the head of Paramount Casting, Gary Marshall, Ed Milkis, Tom Miller from Milwaukee. That's why Happy Days was set there.
Okay.
And I was petrified because every actor in the waiting room was famous. Everybody I had seen on television. And then me. And so I walked into the room and I introduced myself. And there was a young man named Pasquale. And Pasquale was going to read with me. He was reading the other part. And I don't know what happened, but I am always able to go with my instinct when it comes to my work. But in the beginning of my life, I could not be as authentic. And something snapped, and I just looked at Pasquale, and I said, "Don't you look at me like that." Do not look me in the eye, buddy. All right, let's start. And then we were done. I flipped the script in the air. I sauntered out of the room. And on my birthday, October 30th, 1973, they called and said, "Would you like to play this role?" And I said, "I would." Yeah. I would. Now, my parents call, very short Germans. And they call and they say, "You know, they're going to take you, your sister, and what's his name?" They never actually called my sister's first husband by his first name. Lovely people. And they're taking you, your sister, and what's his name on a trip to Europe because we don't know how long they're going to be around. Now, that was 1973. My mother, bless her soul, died in 1989. But they don't know how long they're going to be around. And I said, "I can't come." Because I just got a small role on a show in Hollywood. And my mother said, it was like yesterday. "Oh, this is great. Here, tell your father."
Yep. Now, when you accepted the role of the Fonz, of Arthur Fonzarelli, we all know him well, do you remember you had a conversation with whoever it was that offered you the role, and you said something about, as long as I can...
Show the emotion.
Thank you.
That, when he takes off his jacket, eventually he has got, who's he going to be cool for in his apartment? And they said yes, and I said yes, and I had the greatest time. And, I said... Hey, for 10 years.
Not bad.
It was like really easy to memorize. And then I added my own word, which came from my favorite sport at the time. Whoa.
Your own word.
Yeah.
A.
And whoa. But the reason that it was great to have the words is because I could reduce paragraphs to sound. I could talk through the sound. Hey, she is so beautiful. Hey, I'm hungry. Hey, do not mess with me. And so, because you cannot be cool when you talk that much, right. Unlike me in my real life.
That's right. So just saying the word, you conveyed so much emotion.
Absolutely.
Yes. Most actors want more words, but you said less. Yes. Amazing. And part of that, I'm imagining, is you went to school at Emerson and Yale Drama.
All right.
Oh, right.
So I got into Yale. I applied to 28 colleges. I got into one, Emerson College in Boston. I am in the bottom 3% academically in America. That is quantified. And I took geometry for 4 years, same course. I took it in regular school, I took it in summer school, regular school, summer school, regular school, summer school, regular school, summer school. And I finally passed it in the summer of 1963 with a D-. If I did not get that D-, I could not go to Emerson in Boston.
Yeah.
And I want to just say, I like to stand up.
I know, I love it.
I don't know why I had to take that much geometry, because from that day in August of 1963 until tonight, not one person has ever said hypotenuse to me. What were they thinking? So I finally figured out that we have to teach our children how they learn, not what we think they should learn. And if there are young people in this audience, if you are still going to school, I want to say to you now, how you learn and how difficult it is has nothing to do with how brilliant you are.
That's so well said. And I imagine it took a long time for you to get to that point. That's
yes.
that's such a profound...
I felt I was stupid until about last Tuesday.
What changed?
But my parents called me dummer Hund. For those of you who don't speak German, that means dumb dog. Very lovely people. My teachers, all the adults in my life said I was lazy and stupid, that I would never meet my dream. I would never achieve much. And I didn't want to be stupid. I didn't think I was stupid. But yet you identify, well, if they say it, it must be true. So you think it. And so it completely cuts off your ability to try something that you think is going to make you look dumb or just you will not achieve. So this is another lesson that I have learned in my life. I'm here to tell you, and I don't mean to be presumptuous, every single person in this room is powerful. I know this. Some of you don't know your power. Some of you haven't tasted. Some of you are afraid. Some of you absolutely have been in touch with your power. But here it is. You do not know what you can achieve until you just put one foot in front of the other. Writing books. I had trouble getting hired because, I was the Fonz. Right. And they would say, he is so funny. He is but he was the Fonz.
Typecast, yeah.
And so a friend of mine said, write books for children about your learning challenges. And I said, well, I can't do that because I'm learning challenged. And he said, I'll introduce you to my friend, Lynn, who knows everything about children's books. And I want to tell you that Dumme Hund, about 16 days ago, our latest children's book came out, and that makes 39.
That's a lot of books. Yeah, that's amazing.
And I'm telling you, I mention it only because I absolutely knew I couldn't do it until I just tried.
Yeah.
And you figure it out.
There's a couple. That message really stuck out in the book to me. You said the schizophrenia of, this is when you get a big opportunity. The schizophrenia of are you crazy? How dare you? And then finally, shut up and just try it. That really,
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And so many times, I did a play on Broadway in 2000. Neil Simon, the most prolific playwright. First, he asked me to come downtown in LA and read his play out loud so he could hear it. Because his genius was that he would, during preview, rewrite it. We started with version 4 and opened on Broadway with version 11.
Wow.
I'm telling you, it was amazing. But I said, how can I read out loud? I can't read at all. How am I going to read out loud for Neil Simon? And I was so willing to say no to so many things, convinced I couldn't do it. And finally, I just said, you know what? I am bored with just saying no. Just shut up and try it.
Shut up and try it.
And we ran for 9 months with the great late John Ritter.
The dinner
who
party.
was so funny.
So funny. You say you can't catch a fish unless your fly is in the water.
Yeah, well, I love fly fishing.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, Stacy and I go at least once a year. It is like a washing machine for your brain. It is the lapping of the water and the beauty that is around you, and you can only concentrate on that fly, and you have a fourth of a second as the fish takes your fly and realizes it's not the real thing and spits it out. And then you have to be in line. You have to be in tune with the trout. It goes, you bring it back. It goes, you bring it back. Then you take a picture, you give it a kiss. I like to sign a laminated picture of the fawns, put it in its mouth. I am hanging in nests all over the West.
I believe it.
Oh.
I would see it. I love it. And now here's a question. On average, who catches bigger fish? You or
Okay,
Stacey?
my wife does, but let's not talk about that.
Just curious.
I don't know what it is,
I'm
but
just curious.
and we fish in separate boats because there were a lot of arguments. There are rules. The guide sits in the middle of the boat. The person in the front has all of the water in the front, all the way up to the oar. The person in the back has up to the oar and all the way behind in the back of the river. But sometimes my wife's water looked so fishy, my fly, I don't know how it happened. And so now we fish in separate boats and meet for lunch.
That's right. And this marriage has been for how many years?
Well, we have been married for 45 years.
So we're going to trust that that's a good way to make it work.
I'm telling you, I think the ear is the center of all relationships and separate boats.
Good advice. Now, speaking of our darling Stacy.
Yes.
Stacy's point of view is a very fun and unexpected part of this book. I was reading the book page by page, and then at one point, it switches over to Stacy's point of view. The font changes, it says Stacy. It's clearly from her, and I thought to myself, I know this is an audiobook. What, is Henry doing a voice for Stacy? What, I got it. So I immediately downloaded it on Audible, and then I went back to the beginning, and I read each page while I listened to Henry's voice. It was really a kind of incredibly cool way to read the book. I would recommend it. But when Stacy's part starts, it's wonderful Stacy's voice.
Yes.
Now, Yeah.
Because the director said, would Stacy do this instead of hiring an actress? And I asked Stacy, and she just went right into the studio on her own and recorded her section
Amazing.
of the book, her point of view.
I was wondering, yes, if it took convincing. It sounds like it didn't. She got it.
She got it.
I love her. I love you. You two. It's an aspirational and inspirational relationship, and I love you both.
I can't wait to have it.
Yeah. Were you now? One thing about the book, and that maybe people would be surprised about, is to read about your relationship with your parents.
Yes.
And I was sort of blown away with your honesty in this book and how real you were.
Well, if you think that was honest, my wife was my secret weapon. She was my editor at home, and she said, "Hey, buddy, you've got to pull back on that." And so I took out a sentence or two.
Yeah.
But here it is. They were. I joke about them, but they were really worse than I tell you.
You gotta laugh to keep from crying.
You do. They were very. So here it is. I deeply respect that they had to leave their country and come to a new country. They had to learn a new language. My father started a business. We lived above our means, and I had a pretty good life. But here's what I can't reckon with. When you are a parent, and I know that you know this, the child comes full blown. They come who they are and who they're going to be. And you have to see them and listen to them, because I believe a heard child is a powerful child. And so I promised Stacy and myself I would be a completely different parent, and that my children could say what was on their mind, that I literally would see them. My parents would yell at me and punish me, and I wasn't exactly sure what happened. I would walk into the room and they would start, and my brain would turn gray. And then I would go into my room and I would listen to music, and sometimes I would listen to arias from opera because the music was so big, and it would calm me down and my brain would return back to normal. I had a problem. I was not an extension of who they were. I embarrassed them because I did not do well. They thought if I stayed at my desk long enough, I was going to get it. And they didn't understand dyslexia. I understand that. But you do see your child has a problem. And then you say, I'm going to figure out how to make this easier, better, take care of it, or understand.
Right.
And they could not. They didn't have the capacity, and that was tough.
I bet.
It was tough.
And
I'm 78, and I have cleared myself of most of my rage, but not all of it.
But not all of it. You know,
I still have a speck
little,
left.
and you got to keep a little bit just for that extra.
It could come out at any moment.
You know, in the book, you talk about how you would make the decision when your parents would treat you badly. You would say to yourself, I will never parent like this.
Yes.
I will never parent my kids the way they parent me. But my big how question is, how, when you were a little guy, just a little kid making your way through the world, did you not let their poison infect you? How did you become, because I know you're an amazing parent, I know your children, I know your wife, I know that you did what you hoped to do. You are a great dad.
Thank you.
But how did you not,
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think maybe there is an emotional component to dyslexia, but also I will tell you that what I realized when I was working on the book, I worked with this wonderful man, James Kaplan, and he would mold all my stories. We flew him to California. I didn't know this was my responsibility.
Well.
I thought I was getting a lot of money, and I flew him out twice. I had to put him up in a hotel. I fed him 3 times a day. This man was an eater. but he also was lovely to work with. And when I looked at the whole book, I finally realized it literally was the journey from where I started being who I thought I should be to becoming a more authentic me, to being who I am. And, people would ask me all the time, so tell me, how is it to be cool? Tell me how to be cool. And I finally realized being your authentic self is powerful and you are cool. It is magnetic and it is filled, because once you know about yourself, you know about everybody. Yeah. Our exteriors are different, but our core is the same. And I just had a thought with my parents. My little self was so in shock. Yeah. That I literally covered it over with Chernobyl thickness of cement. Yeah. And I started about 8 or 9 years ago with a therapist, a talking doctor. And if I were to give her a gift, this woman, I would have to give her a gift the size of a skyscraper. Because she literally helped me jackhammer fissions open in the cement, so that a little plant would come up now, right. And I am getting to be a full garden instead of who I imagined you're supposed to be.
And when
that was a long answer.
Oh, it was so good though. Yes, we can. When you think about you starting to.
I had a lot of coffee.
I know it was.
Yeah.
We're jacked up. It's great. We're buzzing. But how much of that do you think this sort of realizing who you are and how much of that is the shrink? And how much of that is an amazing therapist? I think she's been an amazing therapist.
She is wonderful. I want to just tell you, the very first day I met this doctor, I sat down and I went, "Hi, Henry. Hi, I'm so happy I'm here. So, do you have any children?" And she said, "How will that help you?" I have not asked her another question. I think about a couple of weeks ago, I found out she doesn't like peanut butter.
After years. Yeah. So how much of that is her? It sounds like she's incredible. And how much of that is you being at a place in your life where you're sort of ready?
I was at a place, that's a great question.
Thanks.
I was at a place where I could hear her and I could go with her on the journey. I had a therapist years ago who, after a few months, said, "Hey, look, with the end of our session, thanks for coming. Would you read a script that I said, "It was so nice to see you. Goodbye. Forever."
Yeah.
This woman literally, it might be me, but I did not know that me until she led me or helped me get to that me.
That's amazing. Yeah. Maybe the perfect time to meet her.
Yeah, you know what? I knew things intellectually. I knew I was presumptuous. I would tell people great things that I knew.
Yeah.
And then the bottom of my brain was soldered shut. So none of what was here ever filtered into my whole body. You know when you have coffee in the morning, if you drink coffee or tea, and you put cream in it, and the cream swirls around the liquid and fills up the cup? My thoughts never swirled until recently.
That's amazing. I know.
I just felt a swirl. I was acting out the swirl.
I thought about this so much when I was reading the book and when we've just talking to you over the years, the way, you've been a public person now for 50 years and you have this incredible reputation in the community, in the business, but also literally in the world, which is a funny thing to say, but true. So it's funny to read this book where you're sort of looking back and it's refreshing, but looking back on things that you wish you had done differently, or things you didn't like about yourself, or you wish you had handled this differently or that differently, because you've been so well loved and respected.
Yeah, but not until recently could I let that love in, unless my children and my puppies. But that was basically it. Yeah. And I left Stacy always just on the fringe. I love her very much. I appreciate and respect her very much, but I was not able. Yeah. I was like, you stopped at the, right. Like I had a barrier. A barrier. Yeah. Yeah. And then finally, I can. It is an amazing thing. I am amazed myself.
Yeah, that is incredible. I love it. What? You took a breath. You said.
No, I was just thinking that I always appreciated. I heard what people were saying to me. I felt the warmth, but they couldn't possibly be saying this about me. I kept looking to see who they were talking to, do you know? And it's no joke. I mean, what I'm telling you is the actuality of it. Yeah. Now I can enjoy sharing the moment with whoever it is in whatever language they're telling me.
I see that. I've seen it. I see that. It's inspiring to me. I love it.
Thank you.
What's one of my favorite things about you? I have so many questions and so little time. I have pages of questions. Luckily, I can ask you later. But I know also that the audience has a lot of questions. So I'm going to just sort of, I want to talk about Barry. Oh, have us back, won't you? I'm going to ask you some sort of lightning round questions. These are just some top of the brain.
Okay.
Maybe you're saying a word. Maybe you're saying a sentence.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to say. Ready? Here we go. Just free your mind. Best concert.
Best concert. I love music, but I can't make music. I use music when I'm memorizing a monologue. And I'm. This is not lightning, but but I have Bruno Mars and Bruce Springsteen. Oh my God, and Brandy Carlisle. I don't know if you know. Oh my God, Brandy Carlisle. So Stacy and I just went to Brandy Carlisle's concert, and I could not leave the venue until I hugged Brandy Carlisle. And she had friends with her. Annie Lennox sang. Oh my God, with such power, my hair, and we were and the last friend was Joni Mitchell.
Wow.
Just had her 80th birthday. Okay, so I go backstage. I finally get to hug Brandy Carlisle, and Joni Mitchell is sitting in a dressing room. And I walked up and I said, "Miss Mitchell, I am Henry Winkler. I know who you are." I said, "And this is my wife, Stacy." And she went, "Oh, so you married the Fonz." Okay.
That's really good.
What else could go? Yeah, that was it.
Oh, amazing. I have more, but okay. I want. Okay. Okay. Yummiest cake.
Yummiest cake.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do this really quickly.
I know you can.
A chocolate bundt cake, no icing, with mushy chocolate chips.
Great.
And your banana bread.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. I do make a good banana bread. I do make a good banana bread. Okay. Favorite Thanksgiving food.
Okay. I love Thanksgiving.
Favorite holiday, I think.
But I wait 364 days a year for the sandwich the next day. Wonder bread, mayo, fried stuffing, and cranberry sauce right out of the can. Cannot stand those little berries. Turkey, a little more mayo, smush it, cut it. Oh my God.
Okay. The list goes on, but I think this answer will not be one word, so I'm just going to say Patrick Mahomes.
Not a sports person, but I was on Rich Eisen's talk show. He is a sports show. And while he is talking to me about the last season of Barry, I just blurted out, do you know Patrick Mahomes? Because I watch football sometimes with my son and his friends, and I just think he's so improvisorial. And I think he is great. And if you ever meet him, say hi. So he played that for Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes invited me to see him play at SoFi Stadium against the Chargers in LA. I'm invited on the field. Oh my God, I'm standing there, and I am 5'6" and a half. And I'm telling you, all of a sudden, this behemoth comes running across the field with a smile on his face, and he said, I have a surprise for you. Yes, sir. Honest to God, he gives me his jersey signed. I'm 78, I'm now 12. And so this Super Bowl, in my living room, I wore the jersey. I'm sure that's why they won. And I said, you know what? There is always a place at our table for you and your family. You can have like a stuffed chicken with ricotta and spinach, a reduction sauce, and it's delicious. And he's running off now. He's talking to me like we're meeting, we're meeting in the supermarket, and he's going to be beaten to a pulp in a minute. And he's running off. He turns around. He said, I'm going to take you up on that dinner. He is a fibber.
Sad ending to that story. It's a really fun story, and now we're all so sad. Well, the night is young. We don't know. Maybe he'll call you before Thanksgiving. I think he might. Okay, like I said, I have 5,000 more questions, but I know you guys do too. So.
Okay, so can if there is somebody in charge of the lights, could we? Yes.
Oh,
so I can see everybody.
There are people out there.
Hi. What is your name?
My name is Meredith.
Hi, Meredith.
It's nice to meet you. I'm actually asking for Kylie, who's sitting here. She's a student with dyslexia, and we're parents of students with dyslexia. So it's a two-part question. Her question is, what was your biggest struggle? And from the parent perspective, if you think back to school and how miserable it was, what could your parents at school...
What was my favorite struggle?
Biggest struggle.
Biggest struggle. Okay.
And then what could everybody have done
Meredith,
better for you?
Meredith?
Yes.
I was bad in English. I was bad in math. I was bad in science. I was bad in history. I was great at lunch. But Meredith, I'm telling you now, school is the law. So you have to go to school, and you do the best you can, as long as you try, as long as our children tried. Whatever the grade was that came home did not matter, as long as they tried. And I want to tell you, if your entire responsibility is to believe that you are as wonderful as you are, because when you are done with school, when it is behind you, you will soar like an eagle. What is your name?
Jenna.
Hi, Jenna.
My question is, for Jean Cousineau's character, were you inspired by any acting teacher you might have had?
I had 14 teachers. And that was in college and in graduate school. I had the nerve to apply to the Yale School of Drama, being the dummy I was. And I got in. And so he was also based on an acting teacher in LA who was not supposed to be, I never had him, but he was not supposed to be such a nice person. As a matter of fact, I think he asked his students, who were barely scraping together enough money to take his class, to buy his artwork. Then you put all of that inside and you spin it around. Then you've got great creators like Bill Hader and Alec Berg. You've got great acting partners. Great acting partners. And then he comes out. And you know, he was supposed to be a total asshole. And then I kind of liked a student, or I thought, you know, and they said, oh, yeah, we could write to where you're going also. And so then all of a sudden, Gene came out. And I have to tell you, I'm not sure I will ever have something as wonderful to play in my life again. Yes.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. What is your name?
My name is Phil Smith. I've been a Shriners for 30 years next year, Chicago Shriners. And I just want to tell you, I've been active in the Shriners hospitals. I'm going to recommend that your books are added to our rapport at the hospital.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for everything you do for the kids.
Thank you.
And I just, you know, one of the lines I remember when you were in the Fonz, I was a little kid, was you walked in and said, hey, just want to let you know there's a man for every woman, and for some there are more. You remember that line?
Believe me, that was my imagination. What is your name?
Erin. Hi, lovely to meet you. Good to
Hi,
see you.
Erin.
Hi. For all the shows, which I can't, of course, know what you can or can't talk about, what have been some favorite co-stars?
Wow, that is a good question. D'Arcy for sure. Ron Howard was an amazing acting partner. When I started Happy Days, I was 27 years old. I was the oldest teenager. He was 18. He was so wise. You know, when we were first working together, I couldn't do a joke. I couldn't make it work. And, you know, I was an actor from New York. I had drama school, you know, and I just was pounding my script. I was really, really angry. And he put his arm around me, 10 years younger, walked me to the back of the soundstage, and he said, you know, I think the writers are working as hard as they can. I wouldn't hit my script. I said, Ron, I will never hit my script as long as I live. Again, and he is like my brother. You know, so to pick a co-star, Bill Hader, oh my God. You know, I cannot pick somebody. I am so grateful that I am still living my dream that I had on 78th and Broadway, lying in bed thinking, am I ever going to be able to do this? And I am doing it. Yeah. Oh my God.
Okay, now none of these questions are for me, but I have to say, Henry is an actor's actor. We all know his name, we all know his face. He could act like a star, he could act like a snob, he could act like a diva. He is the best acting partner you could possibly have. He is an ensemble member.
Thank you.
And because he's at the top of the call list.
D'Arcy Carden, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. That because you are the way you are on every show that you work on, that trickles down to everybody, and you really set the tone, and you teach us all how to be.
Thank you.
I love you.
Thank you. What is your name?
My name is Michelle Thorne.
Hi, Michelle.
From near Milwaukee, so of course, excited to see the Fonz.
You and my statue.
Yeah, right, that's right, yes, right. I was doing some research and came upon a picture of you and your wife, Stacy, at an event, I think it was at Marlo Thomas's house, supporting the Equal Rights Amendment in the late 70s.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you would be so kind as to comment on why you supported the ERA.
I could not imagine not. I cannot imagine the thought that that anybody is smarter than, better than, more powerful than a man and a woman. A woman should have equal rights. It is insane that we live in the greatest country in the world. Now, when I went to that event, our daughter Zoe was just born. And I took her out with me when I made my speech. And I said, I am here because I want Zoe to feel she could run for president. And that is why I thought it was so important to be there.
Hi, I'm Noah, and I have dyslexia, and I was wondering, how'd you get through when you knew people were talking behind your back?
Okay, so here it is. People talk behind your back because they don't feel really good about themselves. So your job is to feel good about yourself. You will not see these people again. You're going to grow up. They're not going to be in your vicinity. I want to tell you, I have had people say to me, when I got a part in a play in school, I should have gotten that part. I am better than you are. And I want to ask you, where are they now? That was great. Great question.
My name is Dan. It's an honor to meet you. I would like to know, at the time you were the Fonz and you jumped the shark on the water skis, did you actually have any common knowledge that Happy Days was going downward or any...
Got it. Good question. So,
Fair question, fair question.
my father told me to tell Gary Marshall, tell him you water ski. Dad, I'm not going to tell him I water ski. Tell him you water ski. It's like we were invited to the White House. My father said, take cake. I finally told Gary, I said, you know what, my father wants you to know, I water ski. Okay, I told you, fine. All of a sudden, I'm on water skis. So, I couldn't jump the shark because if I got hurt, there was no backup. But I did do all the water skiing, and if you watch the episode, I let go of the rope, and I ski up onto the beach, and I step out of my water skis, and they freeze frame on my smile. Half that smile is the Fonz going, hey, I made it. The other half is Henry going, holy mackerel, you made it. But we were number one for about 4 years or 5 years after I jumped the shark. Yeah. But, a lovely man was in college, and he and his friend thought it up. They had a book and a board game, and this is America, and they should live in health.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. I'm halfway through your book, and I'm like, wow, this guy has done some stuff. Yeah. I want to know, what is your secret to reinventing yourself?
Michelle, I'm telling you, that is the secret. If I can pass anything on to you, and I only found this out by living it, there was a time when it was really difficult to get a job as an actor. And so then I became a producer. And I didn't know what I was doing. And the first show we did was MacGyver. And then it ran for 7 years. And in its new iteration, it ran for 5. I didn't know I could do that job. And then later on, I had a lot of trouble, and somebody said, write children's books about your dyslexia. And all of a sudden, this is my 41st book. Now, you don't know what you can accomplish until you just try. And there is no time better than exactly now, at this moment. I'm not kidding. I'm too old. Oh, well, I'm too busy. I've got too much going. My work won't let me. You know what? It's too hard. All of that stuff is not true. What is true is that you get to do what you want to do that you didn't know you could, and then you find out you can. And it is great. And I would just like to say, we are so happy that you came here tonight and that you listened, because my parents never did.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you so much.
Don't we just love them?
That was Henry Winkler and D'Arcy Carden at the Chicago Humanities Fall Festival in 2023. Check out the show notes or head to chicagohumanities.org for the link to his book, Being Henry, The Fonz and Beyond, and some other fun stuff. Chicago Humanities Tapes is produced and hosted by me, Alisa Rosenthal, with help from the awesome staff at Chicago Humanities who are programming these live events and keeping everyone sounding great. Next up, we'll be back in 2 weeks with author and poet Sandra Cisneros, known for her best-selling novel The House on Mango Street, for a wonderful, hilarious, wacky, poignant chat on her new book of poetry, Woman Without Shame.
What keeps you motivated? Because writing's hard. You have to do it by yourself. You also need to recharge with other things besides other writers and, find the wisest, oldest tree and sit underneath it, and you can cry there because the oldest tree knows things that people don't know.
Make sure to click subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform to be alerted when this episode drops. For more than 30 years, Chicago Humanities has created experiences through culture, creativity, and connection. Want to be a part of it? Check out chicagohumanities.org for information on becoming a member, where you'll have access to exclusive name drops and other cool insider perks. But in the meantime, stay human.